Hello and welcome to 100 Days. First Syria, then Afghanistan. Could North Korea be America's next target? The US Vice President issues a veiled warning to Pyongyang.
But North Korea tells the BBC it will be testing missiles on a weekly basis and that all-out war will result if Washington takes military action.
After a visit to Korea's demilitarized zone, Mike Pence says the era of strategic patience is over.
North Korea would do well not to test his resolve or the strength of the armed forces of the United States in this region.
In Turkey, a defiant President Erdogan rejects the findings of international monitors who say Sunday's referendum was flawed.
Also, the House race in Georgia attracting national attention.
Flip the six! Flip the six! Flip the six!
With 18 candidates, the field is wide open. The Democrats have cast it as a referendum on President Trump's 100 days. And it wouldn't be Easter without the White House bunny. The annual egg roll lives on under a new administration.
Welcome to the programme. I'm Katty in Washington. Christian Fraser is in London. Donald Trump says North Korea has to behave. Speaking in the rather incongruous setting of the White House Easter egg roll, the president added only that you'll see how the US decides to respond to North Korea's latest provocation. His vice president, Mike Pence, was firmer, suggesting America's patience is wearing thin. 2 days after a failed missile launch, Mr. Pence stood at the edge of the most heavily militarized border on the planet and stared across at the communist North Korean soldiers.
And they stared back, taking pictures of the White House delegation that was barely 30 metres away. For Mike Pence, this was an emotional trip. His father, Edward, fought in the Korean War and was awarded the Bronze Star for his service. Today, almost 64 years on, the two countries are still technically at war.
The White House says it is looking at all options short of military action to resolve the standoff peacefully. But the vice president warned Pyongyang that the era of strategic patience is over. And we can speak now to former American ambassador to South Korea, Christopher Hill. Ambassador Hill, we don't get to hear from the Vice Foreign Minister of North Korea terribly often. I just wanted to get your reaction to what he said there.
Ambassador Chris Hill, very good to get your thoughts. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. Katty, I mean, it's pretty obvious now, isn't it, that this is the major foreign policy challenge now for the White House. And the very fact that he sent Mike Pence as his emissary to Korea on such an important weekend speaks volumes.
Yeah, and the Vice President Pence went out there and talked very tough across that border towards the North Koreans. Look, this is the first big challenge for Donald Trump, and he has decided to effectively jettison his promises on trade to a key base of his supporters in order to make allies with the Chinese to address the North Korean problem. This is how critical this White House thinks the North Korean problem is. And for the president to say, look, I effectively during the campaign called China a currency manipulator. I'm not going to do that anymore because the Chinese are working with us on North Korea. Gives you some indication, I think, of the sense of urgency surrounding this issue in the White House at the moment. OK, we'll move on and we'll focus on Turkey because international election observers have issued a damning conclusion on this weekend's referendum there. They say the vote wasn't conducted on a level playing field. They question the actual count as well as the tone of the campaign. Opposition parties, which failed to stop President Erdogan gaining sweeping new powers for himself, may now feel emboldened by the monitor's report. Yeah, but Christian, Mr. Erdogan is defiant as well. At a rally just in the past couple of hours in Ankara, he said the vote ended all debate and he questioned the impartiality of those same observers. He promised military operations wherever necessary to combat terrorism and even proposed another referendum to end talks about Turkey's accession to the EU. None of those comments, by the way, are going to make Turkey's relations with the West any easier.
Well, let's cross to Istanbul and get some more on the long-term implications of this vote. We are joined by Ali Ağaoğlu. He's a columnist from the Vatan newspaper. Very good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Can I just read you a quote that we had from Mr. Erdogan today, talking about Europe? He said, "We prevailed despite the attacks by Western crusaders and their servants." No sign of any reconciliation yet, then? Yeah, a number of ramifications from that referendum. Mr. Ağaoğlu, thank you very much for being with us. Let's bring you some of the day's other news. Clashes have broken out between Israeli forces and Palestinians during a rally held in Bethlehem in support of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners who are going on hunger strike in Israeli jails. More than 1,000 prisoners are demanding improved jail conditions, including better medical care.
Prince Harry has revealed that he had counselling after spending nearly 20 years trying to avoid thinking about the death of his mother. The prince was 12 when Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. In an interview with Britain's Daily Telegraph, he revealed that he only sought help after he reached breaking point.
Police in the US state of Ohio are hunting a man suspected of posting a video on Facebook of him fatally shooting a stranger. Officers in Cleveland say the suspect, Steve Stevens, claimed to have killed 12 other people in a later broadcast on Facebook. But the city's police chief says they don't know of any other victims. Facebook has removed the video, but not before plenty of people had seen it, Katty.
Yeah, you have to worry about our species, right, Christian? When somebody doesn't just shoot somebody, they put it up on a Facebook Live. It's up there for 3 hours. Thousands of people watch the video. Facebook has condemned this, but I have to say, Christian, even today, they're already under pressure. You have to remember, Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook Live just a year ago. He said it was going to be a new raw and emotional form of communication. It's certainly proved to be that today. Awful scenes, but I think there are going to be a lot of questions now about what kind of responsibility Facebook has when something like this happens.
Yeah, disturbing, to say the least.
Yeah, on every level. OK, let's look at the French election now. The main candidates there are holding rallies right across Paris. The latest polls show an incredibly tight race between the main candidates. This is a poll of polls that's been put together by Huffington Post. It shows the centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron, Marine Le Pen of the far right. They are pretty much neck and neck.
Yeah, interesting to see, isn't it, Katty, that the scandal hit François Fillon is back in the race. He kept a bit of a low profile over the last few weeks as the fake job scandal was rumbling, but he's been campaigning over the weekend, particularly among his Catholic base. And of course, you see there Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's been campaigning today. He's an extraordinary character, this. He's been campaigning on the canal in Paris, and he's on a barge, and he's going from stop to stop along this canal with a brass band. He's an extraordinary campaigner, Katty, because he has this hologram which also campaigns for him. It's obviously a hologram of himself. So tomorrow, for instance, he's going to be in Dijon, but he'll be also appearing in 6 other cities. And it's just genius, isn't it? Because obviously all the cameras are focused on this barge, while all the others are in these traditional settings, in big halls and stadiums, etc. Everybody's focusing on Mélenchon. He's a supreme campaigner, which is why he's right up there at the top.
I think we need holograms in Georgia. Let's talk about a test that's going on here in America, Christian. It's between the newly energised Liberal opposition and Mr. Trump, and it's taking the form of a couple of special elections for Congress. Last week, Republicans held on to a seat in Kansas that had been vacated by Mike Pompeo. He's now become the director of the CIA.
Yeah, as a result, Mr. Trump celebrated on Twitter with this. The recent Kansas election, Congress, was a really big media event until the Republicans won. And now they play the same game with Georgia. Bad.
Mr. Trump was referring to another election that's tomorrow in Georgia in a suburb of Atlanta. That contest will decide who to send to Washington in place of Tom Price. He's become the Secretary of Health and Human Services. It's
a seat Republicans have held since the 1970s when Jimmy Carter was president. But the Democrats think they can turn this into a referendum on Mr. Trump's 100 days. Regina Vaidyanathan reports from Georgia's 6th district in the state capital. Bunny outfit is a very good place to hide sometimes, I can tell you. Under those big ears, you can hide.
She gets better and better, doesn't she, Miss McCarthy?
She is very good.
She has Sean Spicer down. I know that Donald Trump doesn't like that interpretation of his press secretary, but that made my Easter weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just fabulous. They're doing so well.
They are. They've still got Steve Bannon, of course, as the Grim Reaper. And this week they introduced Jared Kushner as well, who doesn't actually speak. He just looks good. And it was like an edition. It was like an edition of The Apprentice, and the Grim Reaper got kicked out. So is he going to get kicked out of the White House? We shall see.
I think that's about it, isn't it? We've had a busy day, and all we can think about is Sean Spicer being played by Melissa McCarthy in a bunny outfit. You know that we are getting near to 100 days.
Time to go. You've been watching 100 Days on BBC News. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please do via Twitter at the hashtag BBC 100 Days. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a longer programme, of course. Katty Kay in Washington and me, Christian Fraser. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.